And what if I told you that the most powerful remedy in existence for recovering what you thought was lost forever has been sitting in your kitchen for decades? And it costs less than a single blue pill? And what if I told you that you don't need a doctor's prescription, you don't need to go to a pharmacy, and you don't need to feel embarrassed at any counter because the solution is right there in that little white container that's been in your cupboard for years? I know right now you might be thinking this sounds impossible. If it were that easy, everyone would know about it. Someone would have told you before. But let me ask you a very direct question before we continue. Have you noticed that in the last few years, your body simply doesn't respond the way it used to? There are moments when the intention is there, the desire is there, but something inside you just doesn't quite wake up. That feeling that something has turned off? In fact, an important part of you stopped working without anyone ever explaining why. If that sounds familiar, stay with me until the end of this video, because what I'm about to share with you is not a fairy tale, it's not an internet trick. It's the most honest scientific explanation you will ever hear about why your body has changed and what you can do today to start reversing it. I'm Dr. Camila Herrera, a specialist in prostate health and urology, with 18 years of experience working directly with men over 50 who are going through exactly what you're experiencing right now. I've seen thousands of consultations, I've reviewed hundreds of lab results, and what I'm going to tell you today is something doctors rarely explain with this level of clarity in a 15-minute office visit. My mission is not just to treat symptoms, it's to give you the tools to understand your own body and make smart decisions. Because a man who understands what's happening to him has power, and that power begins with honest information. Today, we're going to talk about something that sounds incredibly simple, but has a deep, well-documented biochemical explanation. I'm going to explain exactly what's happening inside your arteries after age 50, why that directly affects your intimate function, and how a substance that costs just pennies can help change the whole picture. I'll also share the most dangerous mistakes men make when trying to regain their vitality. And at the end, I'll reveal the complete step-by-step protocol with the exact doses and correct timing. The last mistake I'm going to mention is the most serious one. And it's the one most of my patients made before they came to see me. If you only stay for that part, this video will still be worth watching until the very end. Now, before we get into the protocol, I need you to understand something fundamental. Something most doctors don't take the time to explain in a 15-minute consultation. Your body has an internal chemical balance system. That balance is called pH, and it's measured on a scale from 1 to 14. Neutral pH is 7. For your blood to function perfectly, it needs to stay at around 7.4. When you're young, your body regulates that balance almost effortlessly. But as the years go by, especially after 50, that balance starts to break down. Your body becomes more acidic. The pH drops from 7.4 to 7.2 to 7.0, or even lower, and that's where the real problem begins. Imagine for a moment that your blood vessels are like garden hoses made of a very special material. When they're in perfect balance, they stay flexible, soft, and able to expand and contract easily. But when the internal environment of your body becomes acidic, that material starts to change. It hardens. It becomes rigid, like a hose that's been left out in the sun too long. The vessels lose their ability to open wide when your body needs them to. Blood still circulates, but no longer with the force or volume that certain tissues require to function properly. And the tissues that show this deterioration first are precisely the ones most sensitive to changes in blood flow, the tissues in the intimate area. During an erection, those tissues need to receive between 20 and 40 times more blood than normal in just seconds. But acidity doesn't act alone. There's a second mechanism that's even more important, and few doctors explain it. Your body produces a molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the biological signal that tells the walls of your blood vessels to relax and open. It's literally the key that opens the floodgates so blood can flow freely. Without enough nitric oxide, the vessels don't get the signal. They stay contracted. Blood arrives with less pressure, less volume, and less force. And the result is exactly what you already know: slow responses, weak erections, and a loss of firmness you can't explain. So, what's the connection between pH and nitric oxide? The science is very clear. The endothelial cells that line the inside of your blood vessels, the cells responsible for producing nitric oxide, work best in a slightly alkaline environment. When the environment becomes acidic, those cells struggle. They produce less nitric oxide. The open signal weakens, and your blood vessels, especially the small ones in the pelvic area, which are affected first, respond less efficiently. A researcher at Stanford University described it this way: an acidic environment for endothelial cells is like trying to light a wet match. The match exists, the surface exists, but the spark simply doesn't happen with the same intensity. If this information is helpful to you, I ask that you subscribe to the channel right now and let me know in the comments which state of the country you're watching from today. I love knowing how far this information is reaching. So, how does baking soda fit into the story? Baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, is one of the most powerful and safest alkalizing agents found in nature. When you dissolve it in water and drink it, your body absorbs it quickly and begins neutralizing internal acidity. The pH rises and moves back toward that ideal 7.4 range, where endothelial cells work better, nitric oxide is produced more efficiently, and the vessel walls receive the correct signal to relax and open. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument that's been out of tune for years. The instrument isn't broken, the strings are still there. They just need to be adjusted to the right pitch so the music sounds the way it should. Let me tell you about Don Hector, a patient who came to my office about 2 years ago. He was 68, retired from a construction company, active, walked every day, didn't smoke, didn't drink. But he had been dealing for 4 years with what he called a progressive blackout. He told me, "Dr. Herrera, my body just doesn't respond anymore. And the worst part is I feel fine, I have the desire, but that's where it ends." His fasting urine pH was 6.2, very acidic. I explained exactly what I just explained to you. We prescribed a 3-week baking soda protocol as a complement. On day 9, Don Hector called the office. "Doctor, last night my wife asked me what I had taken. She said it had been years since she saw me like that." I didn't know what to say. He told me with emotion in his voice. What changed in his body wasn't magic, it was chemistry. The internal environment returned to the correct range, and the cells simply did their job. But before we continue with the protocol, I want to address something many people ask about, and it's very important to understand. Why does the body become acidic with age? There are 4 main reasons. The first is the modern diet. Refined sugar, white flour, processed meats, cold cuts, and carbonated soft drinks. All of these foods produce acids when metabolized. If most of what you eat falls into this category, your body is constantly generating excess acid. The second reason is chronic stress. Cortisol, the stress hormone, increases the acidity of the body. Many men over 50 have been living in a state of silent stress for decades, acidifying their bodies without anyone noticing. The third reason is the decline in kidney function. The kidneys are primarily responsible for regulating pH. As we age, they work less efficiently. The fourth reason is the reduction in buffering capacity. The body has natural buffering systems to keep pH stable, but those systems weaken over time. Baking soda acts directly as an external buffering system, supporting exactly the mechanism the body can no longer maintain on its own. Now, let me tell you about Doña Rosa. She was 67 when she came to see me. She came because her husband, who was 71, no longer wanted to be intimate with her. I told her the problem wasn't desire, it was circulation. I explained the protocol to her so she could take it to her husband, Don Salvador. 3 weeks later, she called me, laughing. "Doctor, I don't know what happened, but I won't be needing any more consultations." Don Salvador had recovered something he had already given up on forever. Now comes the part you've been waiting for, the complete protocol. I'm going to be very precise because the correct dose is the difference between extraordinary results and getting none, or worse, causing problems. The protocol has 2 moments during the day. The first is in the morning, and it's the most important. As soon as you wake up, or before brushing your teeth, before coffee, before any food, take a 1/4 teaspoon of pure food-grade baking soda. Not industrial or cleaning grade, the one sold in the baking section of the supermarket. Dissolve that 1/4 teaspoon in a glass of warm water, not cold, not hot, warm. Stir well for about 20 seconds and drink it slowly. Here's a critical detail many people ignore. Do not add lemon. Lemon is acidic and neutralizes the effect of the baking soda. Just warm water. After drinking the glass, wait at least 30 minutes before breakfast. The second moment is at night. 2 hours after dinner, before going to bed, repeat the same process. A 1/4 teaspoon in half a glass of warm water. This nighttime dose is especially important because it's during sleep that the body carries out its regeneration and hormone production processes. Keeping the pH in the correct range overnight makes all those processes work more efficiently. The total daily amount is half a teaspoon, no more. That is the limit you should not exceed. More is not better. Excess baking soda can reduce stomach acidity too much and cause digestive problems. It can also affect sodium balance in the body, especially in people with heart or kidney issues. Half a teaspoon divided into 2 1/4 teaspoon doses. That's it. Let me tell you what happened with Don Jorge, a 75-year-old patient who came to my office very skeptical. He was a retired accountant, very methodical, very analytical. He said, "Doctor, don't come to me with home remedies." I explained that baking soda is not a folk remedy in the traditional sense. It's a molecule with a documented mechanism of action in international medical literature. I showed him studies and explained the biochemistry. He left with the protocol in hand, not entirely convinced. 4 weeks later, he returned for his follow-up. He sat down in front of me without saying a word and handed me a sheet where he had recorded his morning erections daily. First week, 0. Second week, 2 out of 7 days. Third week, 5 out of 7 days. Fourth week, every single day. "Doctor," he said, "I'm an accountant. The numbers don't lie." Baking soda by itself is powerful, but when you combine it with the right habits, the results multiply dramatically. There are 4 complements I'm going to explain now. The first is hydration. Baking soda makes the body need a little more water to process the pH change correctly. If you don't drink enough, you may get headaches or feel dry. The ideal is 8 glasses of water spread throughout the day. Not all at once, but in small, steady amounts. The second complement is potassium-rich foods. Baking soda contains sodium, and sodium needs to be balanced with potassium for the body to function properly. The easiest potassium-rich foods to add are avocado, bananas, spinach, beans, and almonds. You don't need huge amounts, just include them in your daily meals. The third complement is reducing acid-forming foods. This doesn't mean an extreme diet or giving up everything you like. It means being conscious. If you drink soft drinks every day, you're working against the baking soda. If you eat a lot of refined sugar or white flour products, your body keeps producing excess acid, and the baking soda has to work twice as hard just to stay neutral. I'm not asking for perfection, I'm asking for awareness. The fourth complement is green vegetables: spinach, broccoli, cucumber, lettuce, Swiss chard. All of these are naturally alkaline. When you include them, they work in the same direction as the baking soda, supporting the alkalization of your internal environment. Let me mention Don Ernesto, who was 72 when he started the protocol. What made him different was that in addition to the baking soda, he started eating avocado with egg and spinach for breakfast 3 times a week. After 6 weeks, not only had his intimate response improved, something he didn't expect also happened. His blood pressure dropped 4 points, exactly what his cardiologist had been trying to achieve with medication. The change wasn't just in one area, it was systemic. Now, let me talk about response times because this is important so you don't get discouraged. Every body responds at its own pace, but there's a general progression I've observed in most of my patients. In the first 3 days, most people notice more energy during the day and greater mental clarity. Intimate function changes may not appear yet. The body is still adjusting pH. From day 3 or 4, many men start reporting morning erections. Those erections you had when you were young that had faded over the years suddenly return at dawn. It's the first sign that the vascular system is responding. In the second week, most patients report noticeable improvements in intimate response. Erections are easier to achieve, they last longer, and there's less anxiety about performance. After a full month of consistent use, the benefit reaches its peak. The body's pH has stabilized in the correct range, and the system is working with the efficiency it should have. Now, let me talk about important warnings because there are situations where you need to be extra careful. If you take blood pressure medication, you should know that baking soda contains sodium, and in some people, it can raise blood pressure. I'm not saying you can't use it. Most of my hypertensive patients do so without problems. But if you are sodium sensitive, start with smaller doses, 1/8 of a teaspoon twice a day instead of a quarter, and monitor your pressure during the first 2 weeks. If you have significant kidney problems, chronic kidney disease stage 3 or higher, consult your nephrologist before starting. The kidneys process the baking soda, and if they are significantly compromised, you need medical supervision. If you're taking stomach medications such as omeprazole, pantoprazole, or any proton pump inhibitor, separate the baking soda from those medications by at least 3 hours. Taken together, they neutralize each other. Finally, never take baking soda during or immediately after a meal. Always take it on an empty stomach, in the morning before breakfast and at night 2 hours after dinner. Let me tell you about Doña Patricia, 65 years old, who came to my office not for herself, but for her husband, Don Salvador. She told me, "Doctor, I understand that changes come with age, but he's disconnecting emotionally too. He doesn't even try anymore. He's resigned." I explained that the resignation wasn't psychological in origin, it was chemical. When the body fails repeatedly, the brain learns not to try so it doesn't have to experience failure again. The solution wasn't psychological, it was restoring physical function so the brain could regain confidence. Don Salvador started the protocol. After 3 weeks, Doña Patricia sent me a message that simply said, "My husband is back." Now, I'm going to tell you something I find fascinating from a scientific point of view, something many of my patients don't expect to discover. Baking soda doesn't only improve intimate function. When the body recovers its pH balance, the benefits are systemic. Many patients report that joint pain decreases, They sleep better, they have more sustained energy throughout the day, and their digestion improves. This is not a coincidence. Chronic low-grade inflammation, one of the biggest enemies of the body after 50, is directly related to internal acidity. When pH balances, inflammation drops. And when inflammation drops, practically every system in the body works better. A researcher at the National Institute of Medical Sciences documented that people who maintain a consistent morning urine pH between 7 and 7.5 have significantly lower levels of systemic inflammation markers and report higher quality of life in terms of energy, rest, and sexual function. Let me also mention a variation of the protocol that some of my patients have found very effective: the combination of baking soda with apple cider vinegar. I know it sounds contradictory because vinegar is acidic, but when you mix a quarter teaspoon of baking soda with a tablespoon of natural apple cider vinegar in a glass of water, a chemical neutralization reaction occurs that creates a slightly alkaline mixture with additional digestive properties. The mixture will bubble when you stir it. Wait until the bubbles completely calm down before drinking it. This variation not only alkalizes, but also supports intestinal flora and improves nutrient absorption. Doña Alicia, 71 years old, whose husband tried this variation for a month, told me it was the combination that made the real difference for him after the basic protocol had reached a plateau. I also highly recommend pH test strips. They are inexpensive strips you can buy at pharmacies or online. They measure the pH of your first urine of the morning before consuming anything. The first urine of the day is the most accurate indicator of your body's pH because it reflects what happened overnight. You're looking for a pH between 7 and 7.5. If your pH is 6 or lower, that confirms your body's very acidic, and the baking soda protocol is especially relevant for you. If it's already 7.5 or higher, consider slightly reducing the dose so you don't swing too far the other way. It's about balance, not extremes. Don Jorge, the accountant I mentioned earlier, kept a daily pH log for 2 months. At the beginning of the first week, his morning pH was consistently 6.1 or 6.2. By the end of the third week, it was between 7.1 and 7.3. And that's exactly when the most significant results appeared. The numbers confirmed what his body was already feeling. Let me tell you something I consider fundamental to close this video. In my 18 years of practice, I have seen many men resign themselves in silence. They don't tell their wives, they don't consult a doctor, they just assume it's age and there's nothing left to do. And that silent resignation doesn't just affect their intimate life. It affects their self-esteem, their mood, the quality of their relationship, and their willingness to enjoy life. I have seen 80-year-old men with more vitality than others of 55. And the difference wasn't in genes or luck. It was in the way each one took care of his body and in the willingness to seek real information instead of resigning themselves. Baking soda is not a magical promise. It is a biochemical tool with a clear mechanism of action. When the body is at the correct pH, cells function better, blood vessels respond better, nitric oxide is produced more efficiently, and blood flows with the force and volume the tissues need. It's physiology, not magic. Start tonight with your first dose. A quarter teaspoon in warm water, 2 hours after dinner. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, your second quarter teaspoon. Get some pH strips from the pharmacy. Keep a record. Listen to your body. In 3 days, you'll notice something. In 1 week, you'll understand that this works. In 1 month, you'll be grateful you stayed until the end of this video. If you have questions, if you want to share your experience, or if you have a friend or family member who needs to hear this message, leave your comment below. You can also write to me through the channel. And if you know someone who is going through this in silence, share this video with them. It may be the information they've been looking for without knowing where to find it. I'm Dr. Camila Herrera, and I sincerely wish you recover the vitality your body still has the capacity to give you. Take good care of yourself. See you in the next video. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not replace individual medical consultation. If you have pre-existing health conditions or take prescription medications, always consult your doctor before making any changes to your diet or supplementation.